Before I spill this cup of piping, British drama? Drop a comment. What would you have done if your spouse called you mid-school play and yelled, "Run? Hero or nutter?" And if you're new, hit subscribe. I ruin lives on this channel daily. It was one of those painfully wholesome Tuesdays, where everything smells like dry carpet and middle-class mediocrity. I was sat in the school auditorium, knees pressed against a tiny plastic chair, slowly losing feeling in both buttocks, surrounded by other equally bored parents pretending we were thrilled to be there. Because nothing screams quality family time like watching 30 sugar-hyped 9-year-olds butchering Oliver under flickering stage lights and the watchful eye of Miss Carter, who clearly regrets every life choice that led her to directing Year 4's spring musical. I had my proud parent face on, you know, that fixed smile that says, "I love my child, but I'd rather be unconscious than sit through another off-key version of Consider Yourself." Every mom in the row ahead had brought some variation of a homemade flapjack, all gluten-free, dairy-free, and flavor-free, as if a baked oat could cancel out the emotional trauma of this musical disaster. And then, of course, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Now, school rules are very clear. Phones off, eyes forward, and pretend your kid is the next Judy Bloody Dench. But I saw the name flash up and my stomach did a little somersault. My wife, which was odd, very odd. She knew I was here. In fact, she'd spent the morning reminding me not to forget, not to be late, not to wear that hideous shirt, and to clap like I meant it or suffer the silent treatment until Christmas. So, I slipped the phone out like I was doing something illegal, which, in this crowd, felt equivalent to committing treason, and whispered a cautious, "Hello?" Her voice came sharp and panicked. No small talk, no pleasantries, just, "Honey, grab our son and go, right now." I blinked. "What? Don't talk, just move. I'll tell you later." Right, because that's not unsettling at all, is it? I looked around. Nothing seemed wrong, unless you count the fact that someone had given Freddie Clarkson a tambourine and he was absolutely obliterating it like a man possessed. There were no alarms, no announcements, just small children warbling and an audience of parents slowly dying inside. But her voice, I don't know. It had that mum voice. You know the one. Not scared. Not crying, worse, dead serious. Like, "I've already packed the passports in the emergency snack drawer." Serious. And here's the thing. My wife might be many things. Brutally honest, slightly terrifying, and once reported our neighbor for passive-aggressively leaving wheelie bins out on the wrong day. But she is never dramatic for fun. So what did I do? Exactly what any self-respecting British dad would do in a crisis. I sat frozen for a second, mouthed, "What the actual hell is going on?" to myself, and then stood up mid-song, picked up my confused child like a badly wrapped parcel, and legged it past rows of judgmental eyes and the unmistakable disapproval of 1,000 PTA mums in Bowden cardigans. Karen from row C gave me the look. You know the one. The "how dare you disrupt this sacred moment of underwhelming musical theater" face. If I'd had time, I'd have given her the finger, politely, with eye contact, British style. But I didn't. I just grabbed my son and ran like my life depended on it, because apparently it did. Right, so the phone's pressed to my ear like I'm trying to telepathically absorb answers through sheer desperation. And the first thing I hear isn't, "Hi, love. How's Oliver Twist murdering show tunes?" Nope, it's, "Honey, grab our son and go, right now." No context, no explanation, not even a "hope you're enjoying the matinee." Just a full-blown command like she's MI5 and I'm some clueless bloke in a Jason Bourne knockoff, except I'm wearing a hoodie that smells faintly of fish fingers and sitting in a room full of people who still think hummus is edgy. Naturally, I go, "What?" Because that's what you say when your partner rings you mid-school play sounding like they've just seen the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the Tesco Express. And she snaps, "Don't ask, just move." Brilliant. Very helpful. Because nothing screams calming family moment like your wife issuing vague survival instructions during a performance of Oliver, where small children are twirling in waistcoats, like Victorian orphans with inner ear problems. Now look, and I say this with love, my wife can be dramatic. This is a woman who once phoned me, sobbing because she thought the neighbor's cat had died. Spoiler, it was asleep, on our sofa, with better posture than me. But this wasn't someone put pineapple on pizza dramatic. This was, I've seen something and it's bad dramatic. Her tone had none of the usual theatrics. No passive-aggressive sighs, no, do I have to do everything? Martyrdom. Just flat, cold, like she'd already decided exactly how much therapy our son would need after this, and was now focused on keeping us alive long enough to afford it. And here's the problem when you're a semi-functioning British adult. You're so emotionally constipated that your first instinct isn't, am I in danger? It's, oh God, what will the mums think if I leave early? Like the biggest threat is upsetting Sandra from the bake sale committee. I actually looked around to see if anyone else had gotten the same call. Spoiler, they hadn't. They were all still sat there, glazed over, clapping like it was a hostage situation. So here I am with a whisper of panic creeping in, half thinking this is some sort of elaborate test. Like maybe she's finally snapped and wants to see if I'd actually listen for once. Or maybe she's hidden cameras somewhere. And this is our new reality show. Will he survive the school play? But something in her voice, that brittle, no-nonsense calm women get when they're one scream away from a full breakdown, it made me move. And let me tell you, nothing wakes you up like the moment you realize your partner's not being cryptic for fun. She's being cryptic because she's terrified, and you don't know why. So I stood up, not gracefully, more like I'd been tased by indecision, grabbed our son, who was halfway through pretending to sweep a Victorian street, and started dragging him out like we'd just been told the building was on fire. Did people stare? Oh, absolutely. Like I'd just stood up and announced, by the way, your kids are terrible actors and I'm taking the only one with talent. One dad gave me the kind of look you usually reserve for people who cut cues at Greg's. But I didn't care, because the woman who once cried over a cat was now telling me to run. And I don't know what scared me more, that she meant it, or that I didn't ask more questions before doing exactly what she said. Now listen, the logical part of my brain, the bit that still vaguely believes in reason and order and the NHS not being on fire, was screaming, she's overreacting. This is classic wife on a whim stuff. Maybe someone parked in her spot. Again. But then, there was the other part of my brain. The married part. The I know that tone and I quite like having testicles attached part. The part that knows exactly when not to argue. Because the consequences aren't hypothetical. There you'll be sleeping on the sofa under a Paw Patrol blanket for 3 days. Real. And that part said, mate, shut up, move. So I did, I stood up, mid-song, right as the kids were launching into their sixth musical number, which I think was supposed to be Food Glorious Food, but sounded more like 30 tiny ghosts wailing about soup. I stood loud and awkward, and because apparently I can't move quietly in crises, knocking over a cup of lukewarm squash and probably someone's vegan mini quiche in the process. Heads turned. Oh yes, the whole lot of them, all those shiny parents, clutching their iPhones like Oscars, stared at me as if I'd just stripped naked and started screaming about the monarchy. I could feel Karen from the second row vibrating with passive aggression. Her eyes said, excuse me, other people's children are emoting on stage. How dare you disrupt this deeply average performance? Meanwhile, her mouth was pursed tighter than a Tory budget. But I didn't stop. Didn't explain. Didn't wait to be escorted by Miss Carter, who, bless her, was mouthing, is everything all right? With the concern of someone who'd rather die than have a real emergency. Interrupt her directorial debut. Instead, I marched straight onto the edge of the stage like some feral parent turned security guard, locked eyes with my son, who, by the way, was living his best life with a mop and a Cockney accent, and hissed, come here now. He blinked, then shrugged, and off he came, stage left, like a tiny EastEnders extra clocking off early. One of the teachers tried to stop me. Some well-meaning TA with a clipboard and a Be Kind badge. She was all, sorry sir, but is there an emergency or... And I just said, my wife said leave. That's the emergency. Which, to be fair, is probably the most British crisis statement ever uttered. And even though every fiber of my being was screaming, you're being dramatic. You're going to look like a right tit when this turns out to be about bin day. I couldn't shake her voice. There was something off in it. That tight, low pitch. The sort of tone a woman uses when she's been crying but doesn't have time to talk about it because she's got a casserole in the oven. And a body to bury. Not panicked, not frantic, worse. Controlled. It didn't sound like, oh no, we forgot to pick up milk. It sounded like something is coming and I've already decided what I'm willing to lose. And when someone who does not do silence suddenly is silent, you bloody listen. So I walked out that auditorium with our kid in tow and the full, burning shame of a man who's just become that parent. The one people will talk about later in hushed tones, saying things like, "Did you see him? Just walked out. Must be having a breakdown. Probably gluten." And for all I knew, maybe I was. But deep down, under the sarcasm and the social anxiety and the intense desire to please strangers I don't even like, I knew something was wrong, and that terrified me more than any judgmental PTA witch ever could. If you've ever wanted to feel the crushing shame of being judged by an entire room full of people wearing matching lanyards and sensible shoes, just try abruptly walking out of a school. Play mid-song, dragging a confused child behind you, while looking like you've either soiled yourself or just witnessed a murder. People turned. People stared. It was like I'd lobbed a firework into baby Jesus' manger and shouted, "The end is nigh." And my son, bless him, looks up at me, little face scrunched with confusion and probably just a bit of betrayal, and goes, "Dad, are we in trouble?" Honestly, I wish we were. That'd be easier, because at least when you're in trouble, you usually know what you've done. This was the kind of ominous where you suspect something awful's happening, but no one's invited you to the full mental breakdown yet. So I just said the most British, emotionally stunted sentence possible. Mom said to leave. So we're leaving. Like that somehow explains anything. Like it's perfectly normal to evacuate a school, auditorium mid-musical, because your wife's got that voice to him. And of course, there's Karen. Karen from row C, the unofficial president of the PTA, a woman whose personality is 80% scented candles and 20% thinly veiled judgment. She made that noise. You know, the one in the theatrical sigh designed specifically to make sure you feel like the one ruining the wholesome community moment. She muttered, loudly obviously. Honestly, some people, like I'd just thrown up in the choir or started chanting anti-vax slogans, and part of me wanted to stop, to explain, to say, "I don't know what's going on either, Karen, but I think my wife might be trying to save our lives or, at the very least, prevent a very public nervous breakdown. So if it's all the same to you, love, you can stuff your judgment up your fair trade flapjack and kindly sod off." But I didn't, because I am tragically British, which means I internalize all rage and express it exclusively through sarcastic thoughts and passive-aggressive tea-making. So instead I just did that awkward, polite nod. You know the one. The one that says, yes, I am the villain of the bake sale, but also I might cry in the car park. And I kept walking, all the way down that impossibly long center aisle, the sort of aisle that suddenly stretches into the void when you're doing the walk of shame past 30 mums, 3 granddads, and 1 teacher who used to work in telly and won't stop mentioning it. My son, still whispering questions. Did I do something wrong? Are we being chased? Am I still allowed a Happy Meal later? And the honest answer? I don't bloody know, mate. Because right now, the only thing I did know was that something was wrong. And I couldn't fix it with a juice box and a smile. Not this time. As we hit the double doors, I glanced back, purely out of habit, and locked eyes with Karen again. She looked smug, like she'd just witnessed the scandal of the term, and couldn't wait to tell the other mums over her next lukewarm cappuccino. And maybe that's what tipped me over from mild embarrassment to full-body dread. Because I wasn't just walking out of a school play anymore. I was walking into something, and I didn't have a clue what the hell it was. The drive home started like the aftermath of a social car crash. Silent, awkward, and weirdly sweaty. My son was staring out the window like a Victorian orphan in a BBC period drama, and I was trying not to hyperventilate or crash into a bollard. No music, no chat, just the sound of our collective confusion rattling around the Ford Focus. I was hoping, praying even, that my wife had just had a moment. You know, one of those episodes where everything feels like it's ending, but really, you just need a nap and a bag of Tankfastics. But then we heard them. Sirens. Multiple, fast, coming from behind us, speeding in the direction we'd just left. And not the sort of sirens that pass you by and you think, ooh, someone's burnt the toast again. No, these were the full-on, everybody move, blue light blazing kind, ambulance, police, maybe even fire. The whole British Emergency Services starter pack. I gripped the wheel like it owed me money. My son, still in his little school jumper with a paper waistcoat from the play, goes, "Are they going to the play?" And I, being the composed, emotionally mature parent that I absolutely am not, replied with, "I bloody hope not." Because if the school production of Oliver had somehow turned into a crime scene, I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't even want to remember it happened. I'd already mentally packed it into the box labeled, "We don't talk about that." Ever. But the sirens kept going. Dozens of them, it felt like, all blaring behind us like some twisted Grand Theft Auto level had been triggered by a child's recorder solo. And in that moment, everything inside me went cold. That horrible, stomach-plummeting feeling you get when something clicks, but not in the satisfying jigsaw way. In the "oh God, I've made a huge mistake and now I'm going to prison or the Daily Mail is going to find out" kind of way. I glanced in the rearview mirror like I expected to see a mushroom cloud over the school or a Channel 5 documentary crew already setting up. My son, still blissfully unaware of the emotional implosion I was having, he asked if we could get chips on the way home. And I wanted to say yes, I did, but I couldn't even think straight. Because I had no idea what the hell was happening. I only knew that my wife knew something, and whatever it was bad enough to pull our kid out of a school event mid-scene and set off a siren symphony down the high street. I tried ringing her again, straight to voicemail. Brilliant. Bloody brilliant. Because nothing calms the nerves quite like the words, "leave now," followed by radio silence and the sudden arrival of every emergency vehicle in a 10-mile radius. I half expected to drive past a burning building, or Karen from Row C being arrested for crimes against gluten. But the road ahead stayed annoyingly normal, mockingly so. Just mums with pushchairs, dog walkers, someone in Crocs getting a Tesco meal deal. Like the entire universe wasn't actively imploding. And I'm sat there, gripping the wheel like it's the last branch on the edge of a cliff, thinking, what the hell did we just run away from? And more importantly, what the hell is my wife not telling me? I was halfway through deciding whether to panic or just drink my emergency bottle of squash when the phone buzzed again. It was her, my wife. Sounded like she'd been sprinting through a council estate at midnight, breathless, a bit wild, and frankly like she'd seen a ghost or a bloke without a mask in Tesco. No hello, no how's your day, just, it's on the news. Turn it on now, right? Because when you're in the middle of running away from what might be a minor school musical meltdown or a full-scale apocalypse, a vague command like that really helps with the nerves. I flicked on the radio, the TV, and anything else that might let me catch up with whatever disaster was about to ruin my week. And there it was, flashing on every screen like an unwanted ad for disaster porn. Breaking news. Bomb threat evacuates local primary school. Parents in panic. Bomb threat at my son's school. Because apparently, pull the fire alarm and someone's got a dodgy whoopee cushion just weren't dramatic enough for this Tuesday. The newsreader's voice was all calm and serious, but I could tell she was thinking, well, that's ruined my lunch break. I stared at the screen like it had personally offended me, which it had, because it meant my life was officially a soap opera. My son was beside me, clutching his paper crown from the play, looking about as impressed as a toddler at a vegan picnic. Dad, what's a bomb? He asked, wide-eyed and innocent. And I nearly choked on my breath because how the hell do you explain terrorism to a kid who still thinks biscuits are a major food group? So I did what any responsible parent would do. I gave him my best, confused but trying to be reassuring face and said, it's, a really loud fireworks display, but you know, the sort you definitely don't want at school. The background hum of the news report was all about evacuation protocols, police investigations, and parents being advised to stay away, which was just perfect timing because, well, we'd already done the running away bit. I tried calling my wife back, but it went straight to voicemail. Classic. Meanwhile, my mind was racing faster than a commuter train at 7:45 a.m. What kind of idiot threatens a school? Was it someone having a really bad day at the Chippy? Did Karen from Row C finally lose it over the gluten-free flapjacks? I flicked on the radio again, half expecting the news to say, and in other news, a man in Crocs was arrested for loitering outside the school with suspicious chip crumbs. But no, this was serious. And my poor son, who had been so excited about showing off his paper crown and singing about old Bill Sykes, was now the unintended star of a drama that would definitely not make it onto the PTA newsletter. The whole situation felt like one of those twisted Dairy Girls moments, but without the laughs. So there I was, parked outside the Chippy, because chips are the only logical next step, shaking like I'd downed a pint of the strongest black tea, while wondering if today was going to be the day. I'd finally have to explain what terrorism means, in between juggling nappies and school runs. And honestly, I just wanted to cry, laugh, and scream all at once. Because nothing says family drama like a bomb threat at the school nativity and a wife who speaks in cryptic code. So my wife isn't exactly James Bond. She works admin at the local council office, you know, the kind of place where the most classified info is who nicked the biscuits from the tea room last week. Yet somehow, she got wind of this whole bomb threat before it was splashed all over the news, like a badly photoshopped celebrity scandal. Apparently, there's this little internal grapevine where important things get whispered around, like who's been caught sneaking out early on a Friday, or in this case, a bomb threat aimed squarely at our son's school. Now, in most households, you'd expect some sort of drama about how to handle this. Shall we ring the head? Inform the police? Send a polite email with, "Please don't explode the school" in the subject line. But no. My wife just picked up the phone, dialed me, and barked orders like a sergeant major on a bad day. "Grab our son and go, now." No, can we chat? No. How do you feel about this? Just pure, unadulterated panic delivered with the subtle grace of a madwoman with a cuppa. I'll be honest. I felt a bit like the poor bloke in a soap who's been dragged into the council. House chaos without any clue. What's going on? Just nodding along? Hoping to God I'm not about to get us all arrested or worse. Banned from the school, fate. But here's the thing. I trusted her. Because when your other half goes full-on emergency exit mode, you learn quickly that it's not just the usual middle-class meltdown about soggy sandwiches or who forgot the school run. Plus, I figured if she's been given this intel at the council, it's got to be serious. Not just some Karen level, passive-aggressive PTA, drama about the coloring pencils again. So there I was, juggling a Wrigley kid, a suddenly useless phone, and the vague hope that this wasn't the start of a full-blown disaster film, you know, the kind where you end up in a pub, awkwardly explaining to strangers why you're shaking like you've had 5 pints of flat lager, and all this, while I'm trying to keep a stiff upper lip and remind myself that, really, nothing about this makes any sense, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because someone's got to. So, lesson learned. If your wife calls you from the depths of the council office and tells you to move faster than a toddler towards the biscuit tin, you don't question it. You just run. Because sometimes the mundane, gray corridors of local government hide more secrets than a season of Dairy Girls. And that's saying something. So, barely 10 minutes after my wife's urgent call, the kind that makes you question if you've accidentally stumbled into a low-budget disaster movie, the entire school was evacuated. And I do mean evacuated like the Queen's lost her favorite corgi or Boris just announced a new lockdown for the 3rd time. Parents were running about like headless chickens who'd just realized they left their car keys in the fridge. Teachers were crying. Bless them. Probably the sort of tears that come from juggling 100 kids who think glue sticks are a snack. Kids were confused enough to be questioning if this was some kind of immersive theater or just a really bad school trip. The police arrived. Sirens blaring like it was the hottest nightclub in town, only to find absolutely nothing. No bomb, no suspicious packages, just the usual collection of forgotten, packed lunches and a suspiciously sticky floor in the hall. And me, I was already home. Yeah, that's right, back in my living room with my son, eating fish fingers like it was a normal Tuesday, and not the set of a badly written thriller. I mean, what else do you do after narrowly avoiding a school-wide panic? Make some tea? Maybe dunk a jammy Dodger or two. Honestly, the whole thing felt like one of those council house dramas where everyone's shouting, but no one's really sure what's going on. Except with more uniforms and fewer cups of tea. My son, bless him, asked, "Dad, why did we leave the play? Was the music too loud?" And I, in full dad mode, shrugged. Something like that, mate. Something like that. Inside, I was thinking, this is the world now. Fish fingers over crisis. Chaos wrapped in custard cream normality. So, while the school was dealing with total chaos, I was having a quiet night in, completely baffled and slightly hungry for something a bit more exciting than a cold chip buddy. Life, eh? Sometimes it's a thriller. Other times, it's just a fish finger and a cuppa, and somehow both feel equally dramatic. We have a laugh about it now. Well, a nervous sort of laugh. Like when you realize you've just avoided stepping in dog poo, but can still smell it on your shoe. But here's the kicker. I doubted her. For a whole 3 seconds. 3. In that brief window of pure marital betrayal, I was ready to chalk it up to her usual dramatics. Which, if you know her, is a bit like saying the Queen is just slightly regal. Those 3 seconds. They could have cost us everything. And I don't just mean my dignity, which, let's be honest, was already in the bin somewhere near the chippy. I mean actual proper life and death stuff. Suddenly the man who was Midna, she's being daft, was now the bloke sprinting like he'd seen the last bus out of a council estate at midnight. Now, when she says run, I don't just jog. I'm off like a bat out of the Queen Vic. No questions, no hesitation, just pure panic-fueled leg power. And honestly, if anyone thinks she's psychic or a hero, who am I to argue? Maybe she's got a bit of that Dairy Girls magic. That mix of chaos and brilliance that somehow saves the day while looking like she's about to lose the plot. So yes, while I'm over here thanking my lucky stars that I didn't have a prolonged internal debate, my wife has officially earned her place in the household mythology, next to the sacred tea kettle and the ever-elusive remote control. In the end, we're just muddling through, one ridiculous, terrifying, and gloriously messy moment at a time. Because if life's taught me anything, it's that the world's a lunatic asylum, and you either run with it, or you get left behind, clutching your crumpets and wondering what on earth just happened. So, was she paranoid? Or a bloody legend? Drop your thoughts below. And if your spouse ever tells you to run without explaining, would you? Or would you need a PowerPoint? Hit subscribe. We unpack chaotic lives with extra sarcasm every week.